So the Las Vegas Raiders season is not 100% over yet, right? Let's just be honest. It doesn't look great. We'll see what actually ends up happening as we kind of go forward. We got a new play caller, which would be kind of interesting. But we are on our bye, so there's not a whole lot of news that's kind of coming out. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our first official mock draft. Some of you guys know this. I work as a scout for the Hula Bowl. I've spoken to multiple NFL scouts, right? And one of the things I'm hearing is there's some guys that are being ranked and valued a lot higher than some of these other guys. So I kind of want to just talk through some of these picks and just kind of give you guys my thoughts and opinions. We're going to do 5 rounds because that's all PFF allows you to do. And keep in mind, the Raiders have one extra 3rd-round pick for the Davante Adams trade, which in this instance is going to be the 74th overall pick. So the Raiders got the 4th overall pick, you guys. Our season did not go as we planned, but it's a great thing for the Raiders because there's some talent in this class, especially at the quarterback position. Now, you guys can see the Patriots end up taking a wide receiver, the Jags take a corner, and the Saints take a defensive lineman. Now, I don't think any of this is going to happen. One, I don't see Tatoria McMillan being the first wide receiver. I also don't see Mason Graham being the 3rd overall pick. But regardless of that, maybe the Raiders trade up to the number 1 overall pick. However you look at it, we're taking a quarterback. There's just no way we're not. Our quarterback situation is really, really, really bad. And if you don't take a quarterback, you're not getting Bobby Slowick. You're not getting Ben Johnson. All right, Ben Johnson just came out a couple days ago saying he's going to essentially pick where he's going to go. Adam Schefter said Ben Johnson is essentially claiming that, right? Adam Schefter put it out that Ben Johnson is not going to just go anywhere. And he's definitely not going to go to a team that's dysfunctional. Adam Schefter was talking about the Bears specifically, which, I might rule the Raiders out as well. But we got to get a quarterback, right? That's what it kind of comes down to. Now, PFF has Jalen Milroe ranked a lot higher than some of these other guys. So they got him ranked number 5 overall. They have Cam Ward 15, and they have Sanders 21. And they have Garrett Nussmeier at 53. Now, what I've heard is Nussmeier actually might be the quarterback 1 in this class, right? So I know that's probably going to be shocking to some of you guys, especially if you don't follow the NFL draft. But Nussmeier's stock has been going crazy over the past 2 weeks. Some people think this guy's going to be the quarterback 1 out of this class. Now, I'm not 100% sure why that's the case. I've watched his tape, and he definitely does look good. I would say that from a pure arm perspective, he has the best arm in this class, and it's not close, right? The guy is a very, very good pocket passer, and he can move too, right? He's not like Aiden O'Connell. This guy can actually move, right? He probably has like that Gardner Minshew quickness and speed. Maybe he's even faster than that, to be honest. Maybe he's like Justin Herbert in that movement. He's a good processor, and he plays at LSU, and I think some teams value that a little bit more. Keep an eye on Garrett Nussmeier. Obviously, I'm not going to take him because it just doesn't make sense at this point. I love Jalen Milroe as well. He's probably the guy that I think could climb outside of Nussmeier to the number 1 spot. We're going to take Cam Ward, though. I think right now Cam Ward looks the most pro-ready. The guy's played 5 years in college, and he's dominating. And I don't even know how else to tell you guys this. Watching the tape of all of these different quarterbacks, I was watching Cam Ward specifically just yesterday, and this guy, just the processing this guy has is incredible. I'm taking Cam Ward. I think he's the best quarterback in the class. That could change, right? We have a ton of games left. Miami will end up playing, in the college playoffs. They'll end up playing LSU. They'll end up playing Alabama, Georgia, whatever it is. So we'll have more tape as the season kind of comes to an end, right? So the Raiders need a quarterback. There's no question about it. But what else do they kind of need, right? You can make the argument the Raiders need a wide receiver, and this is a great spot to take a wide receiver. This class is very, very, very good at wide receiver. If there's a hot take I would have, I think we're going to get 10 wide receivers in the top 2 drafts. Maybe even more, to be honest with you guys. This class is very, very, very solid. And I do think some of these guys are going to move up and down. I don't think it's finalized. One guy that I've heard a lot of good things about is going to be Maryland's Ty Felton. Ty Felton apparently is going to be a 1st-round pick. Now, I don't know if that's going to actually happen, but I've watched his tape. He looks good, right? Another guy that's ranked a lot higher is Trey Harris out of Mississippi. And then Torrey Horton's another guy out of Colorado. Maybe the Raiders don't take a wide receiver at this point. Maybe a running back. That is something that's debatable. I'm going to wait on that as well. I think the Raiders could benefit from taking an offensive lineman at this point. The Raiders have a guy in DJ Glaze who could be the long-term right tackle. Now, is he the future right tackle? We don't know yet. He has to prove it this year for the rest of the season. And he has to then bounce back going into next season and really develop in the offseason. and then come back and he has to be able to hold his own, right? And what I mean by holding his own is in true one-on-one situations, he has to be able to hold his own. I'm not talking about when we double team, when we triple team, when we're chipping. I'm not talking about those moments. I'm talking about true five-man pass protect. He's in a true one-on-one. The Raiders could consider it an offensive tackle. There's definitely a lot of guys with upside. And also keep in mind, like Josh Connerly's an example where he's ranked 118 by PFF, but Connerly's getting first round hype. He might be the first tackle taken. So I don't want to make it like unfair and take a guy like that. That doesn't make sense. Same with Charles Grant. He's being ranked at 177. He's getting first round hype as well. Although Charles Grant might end up being a guard, he'll still have first round hype. Truth be told, if we're taking a guard right here, I might take Charles Grant, to be honest, you guys. If you guys haven't watched this guy's tape, I suggest you guys just go to Twitter, go to YouTube, put this guy's name in and see if there's any sort of clips out there. If you guys want to watch his tape, just DM me on Twitter. I could probably get that to you guys as well. But the guy's good, right? Let's look at the guards. Let's look at the pure guards at this point. Wyatt Milliams, another guy. He's going to play guard at the next level. He could be the best interior offensive lineman coming out of this class. Luke Handro's another guy. Same with Tyler Booker. These guys are very, very, very good football players. And they're guys you can consider, but I'm going to actually go ahead and wait on taking a guard. I understand taking a center at this point. Guard, I'm not 100% sure, right? Center, I think, is a little bit more important. I'm just not 100% sure with the other position, right? Maybe the Raiders focus in on an interior defensive lineman. There's a lot of guys that have a ton of upside. Derek Harmon's another guy that is getting first round hype. Now, he might not go in the first round, but if he's there with pick 36, I'm going to draft this guy. I know the Raiders have Maxx Crosby. We have Malcolm Koonce, and Koonce might come back. He might not. Tyree Wilson's there as well. We have Christian Wilkins. We have Adam Butler. The thing is, Adam Butler is like 30, 31 years old. And the Raiders got to build how good teams build, right? You look at the Green Bay Packers as a great example. The Packers had the Smith brothers, right? Preston Smith, who they just traded a couple days ago, and they had the other Smith. I forget his name as well. And they still went out, even though they had two starting caliber defensive ends. They still went out and drafted Rashawn Gary. And now they have 3 defensive ends, and they trade one of them, right, which was like 2 years ago. And then they draft Lucas Van Ness last year, right? And now you have 3 defensive linemen that are a lot of potential at the defensive end position. They have Kenny Clark, but they still went out and got Devontae Wyatt. They got another guy. I don't know his exact name at the top of my head, but he's a pretty good defense tackle as well. Great teams invest. Even when they have guys, they add that depth, right? They develop, right? Adam Butler is going to be here for 1 or 2 more years. We got to get that next defensive tackle. You look at a guy like Malcolm Koonce. He might not actually be here after the next year or 2. So maybe Tyree Wilson steps up. Maybe he doesn't. We're good at the defensive end spot, but D tackles, I think, a position the Raiders got to hit on. And, I want to also just kind of state this with a guy like Derek Harmon. Harmon may not actually be here at this point, right? He really might not be. Harmon actually transferred to Oregon. I forget where he was at. He wasn't at Bowling Green. I don't remember exactly where he was at, but he just transferred to Oregon, and he's been looking really, really, really good, right? I think this guy has real first-round potential. I think he might actually be the first defensive tackle taken. If I'm going to throw a hot take out there, I think he might go before Mason Graham gets drafted because of the upside. I think the Raiders taking a defense tackle at this point makes a ton of sense. We're a team that we got to develop guys. We got to get better. Now, we have 2 picks in the 3rd round, and essentially there's 6 picks apart. We got 68, and we got 74, and then we have 2 other picks outside of that, 4th and 5th round. What could the Raiders take at this point in the 3rd round? The Raiders can utilize a running back at this point, and I think it would be smart to get a running back. Now, there are other things the Raiders could do with that running back position at this point, right? You could go out and say, hey, there's these 5 guys that are available. Miles Sanders is a guy that's potentially available. There's a couple other guys that are like on 1-year contracts that will become free agents potentially. Maybe you go get one of them. I think one of the things that has happened with the running back position that some people may not have projected out is that although we're like, hey, 12 million, 13, 14, 15, although that's too much money for a running back, teams have made changes on the defense side of the football, right? They don't value the running back position as much anymore. And with that, we're starting to see running backs have a lot more success, right? The defensive schemes are changing. Teams are now utilizing light boxes, which essentially means that they're going to play cover 2 a lot more, right? You keep 2 safeties super far back. And that opens up the run game a little bit, right? We're seeing Saquon Barkley having a lot of success. The 49ers, although they're a really good run team, but the 49ers kind of having success with running the football. Josh Jacobs having a pretty good season as well. Chuba Hubbard, the Panthers, has had a really, really good couple of weeks. We're seeing running backs having a lot more success. And I think with the Raiders, you got to get a running back. Now, there's a lot of running backs in this class. Now, Travion Henderson's a guy that I really like coming out of Ohio State. There's a couple other guys I really like. Taj Brooks, Texas Tech. Trevor Etienne, Georgia. Woody Marks, USC. I think Woody Marks is probably the most underrated running back in this class. I also do think some of these rankings are off a little bit. You know, Oregon's Jordan James, very, very, very underrated running back. There's a lot of potential in this class, the running back position. You could even potentially wait until the 4th round to take a running back. Obviously, if you want to get the best running backs, you got to take one in the 2nd or early in the 3rd. And we're at that point right now where we can take one of the best running backs. I'm going to go ahead and roll forward with Travion Henderson. I will say this, I haven't really watched a lot of these guys down below, right? Like, I've seen Henderson. Obviously, I watched a lot of Ohio State tape. Ashton Genty's the guy that most people want. There's probably 1 or 2 other running backs as well up there. But Trevor Etienne's a guy I personally really like. And truth be told, I would even consider taking Trevor Etienne over Travion Henderson, right? I'm not going to lie to you guys about that. Trevor Etienne's obviously brothers with the other Etienne that plays for the Jags. DJ Giddens, another guy at Kansas State that I personally like. He's explosive, moves well. Maybe the Raiders take 2 running backs. Who knows what ends up happening? But we're taking a running back at this point. I think it just makes a ton of sense. We could take an offensive lineman as well. And in fact, we're going to take an offensive lineman at this point. The Raiders are in a very, very unique spot, right? Because we don't know if we need a right tackle or not. There's a chance that they do end up drafting a tackle, but I don't think it makes sense unless you're going to take a guy in the 1st round. And we need a quarterback, so it wouldn't make sense. And this tackle class is kind of weak, truth be told. And I would still want to see DJ Glaze really have that opportunity at that right tackle position before moving him. So with that, I think it'd be smart for the Raiders to get a guard, right? At least one guard, because going into next season, you don't want to go into next season with, Dylan Parham's the only guard you really have. The other guy, Jordan Merritt is okay, but is he the future? Probably not. Andres Pete's definitely not the future. I think you'd want to ultimately get a guy that you can rely on long term. And there's a lot of good guards in this class. I have a 2nd YouTube channel, actually 3rd at this point, where I cover where I covered the NFL draft essentially, right? And Tate Ratledge is probably one of the best interior offensive linemen. Anthony Belton, I think, physical football player. And then, of course, Alabama has a couple of good interior offensive linemen as well. I'm going to actually roll forward. I'm going to take Tate Ratledge. I think he's one of the best interior offensive linemen. We're going to pull that trigger. I think the Raiders at this point can also consider getting themselves a corner or a safety. Long term, I'm not sure who the Raiders' corners and safeties are going to be. Jack Jones has showed potential, but I don't really know, right, where he's going to actually end up being. There's a guy that Mel Kiper actually has ranked as I think it's his 25th overall player right now. I don't think he's going to be a 1st round pick. In fact, I think he's going to be like 3rd or 4th round. But I watched his tape. Nick Emery out of South Carolina. The guy's a really, really, really good safety. To me, this guy has a ton of potential to be a really good player, specifically when it comes to coverage, right? Not just being a good run defender, but actually being in coverage, being able to find the football. And I think the Raiders got to look to consider replacing Marcus Epps, who's going to come off an injury. And I don't even know if Epps is technically going to be here. And we have Isaiah Palomel. Not 100% sure if he's the future for the Raiders at that position. Trayvon Merrick, also not 100% sure if he's going to be, with the Raiders at that position. This class has a lot of receivers, has a lot of running backs, has a lot of tight ends. If I'm the Raiders, man, I'm considering doubling up, right? Taking some of these guys, because one of the things that I think the Carolina Panthers have done a really good job at that they don't get credit for is they built a team with a lot of weapons, right? They have Sanders, who they took, I think, in like the 4th round last year coming out of Texas. Fantastic tight end. He had like 80 yards this past week. He's kind of breaking out. Jalen Coker, wide receivers like 6'3". Some people are like, man, this guy has Justin Jefferson type upside. Although I don't agree with that, but he looks really, really good as well. Xavier Legette, they drafted him. He looks really, really good as well. The Panthers are putting draft picks in their weapons. And they built a great offensive line, right? Or I should say they paid for a great offensive line. So they're at the point where they can kind of do that. But it's not just them, right? Other good teams have kind of done that. The 49ers have a lot of weapons. The Raiders got to add weapons, right? And this class has a lot of these guys. So let's look at some of the wide receivers available. Tez Johnson's a guy that has a ton of upside. Jimmy Horn Jr., Will Shepard, LaJohntay Wester are three guys that I've watched a lot, have covered Colorado this entire season. Dion Burks, Oklahoma's another guy I really like. It's gonna be an interesting draft for sure, man. Maybe you take a tight end. This class actually has a lot of tight ends as well that have upside. I don't know any of these guys though. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Maybe you take an offensive tackle, probably not. I don't know if any of these guys are gonna actually be here. These Ernest Green might actually go back to school. Charles Grant will be gone. Xavier Truss may actually be there. The Florida tackle is a lot better than I think what he's getting credit for. Maybe take a running back. I don't know. I like the Oklahoma wide receiver, Dion Burks. I'm gonna probably pull the trigger with him. But there's a lot of good talent in this class, and I think that's another thing that's gonna benefit the Raiders is the fact that there's a lot of good weapons, right? So we'll go ahead and take Dion Burks. And there you guys have it, man. There you guys have it. Let me know what you guys think about this draft. Obviously, the Las Vegas Raiders have to get better. I think with this draft here, you get your quarterback, you get a future defensive tackle that has huge upside, you get a running back, a receiver, a guard, a safety. I mean, you're shoring up that your team long-term can have success. Let me know what you guys think, man. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time with another video.